Bonjour mon petit Bonjour mon petit chifle, Amber here. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Bah, 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 bah. It is 2026. It is January 2026. I hope you are all doing well. I hope your new year has started off at least in a better place than your 2025 ended. Me? Me? I'm currently feeling like my brain is trudging through molasses, but we're gonna push, we're gonna persevere. We're gonna sit down and do these yearly recap videos. These are the videos, some of the videos I look forward to most every year, just recapping my best and worsts, etc. Today we are starting with the worst, the most disappointing reads of 2025, the books that just really grinded my gears, just let me down colossally, just didn't meet my needs, and in comparison to the books that I loved this year were just, thankfully there aren't that many. I usually, like, when I set up the list to write them down at the back of my reading journal, I usually set up like 10 places, like the top, I guess in this case bottom 10 places, and I think I really only I have 7 books to talk about. I'm actually really thankful for that my year for the most part was not a bad reading year. I think it was maybe my most diverse, sorry I keep shaking this, the most diverse reading year, like genre wise, age range wise. So I'm gonna try to just like blast through this list and not talk for over an hour. So let's just jump right in. Before I go into the actual list, I do have 2 honorable mentions. They are 2 of the books I DNF'd this year, but because I didn't really read enough of either book to form any other opinion than that I wasn't clicking with it and I had really no interest to continue reading, I'm just gonna mention them as honorable mentions. The first is, okay, Streetlights, People. The first was The Unsettled by Ayanna Pressley, perhaps? I could be making that up. And there's not much to say about it. It's like a, I actually don't even remember what it was about, except that partially took place in Philadelphia. It took place, I think, in the 80s, and it seemed to have like sort of like ties or like inspired to the movement. Then there was A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, which was like a dark academia. I read them in the same month also. It's like a queer dark academia. I could not really click with it. I just felt like I was floating through the book, and it just felt like very pretentious, and I know you expect that with a dark academia, but it just felt like it was trying too hard, so I just let it be. Okay, starting at number 7, so we're gonna go from like least offensive up to like most disappointing, you know. So at number 7 actually completely pains me. I am devastated and distraught to report that one of the worst reads of most disappointing reads of 2025 was Fledgling by Octavia Butler, and it's particularly devastating because Octavia Butler made it to both of these lists. I read Fledgling in October as part of my Sinners themed TBR, and I feel like that was I think it might have been the book I enjoyed reading the least on during October. Oh, right. Okay, because I was going to, my plan was to just like read my thoughts straight from this book. All I wrote down in the book was actually just, okay. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert the clip of me talking about it from my October vlog, which you haven't seen yet because I haven't posted a vlog since June. I'm waiting for the files from my external hard drive to be recovered so I can continue. August through December, I'm editing my December vlog now, are all just waiting to be posted, but I can't post those until I am able to do July. Anyway, so I'm just gonna insert not all of it because I did go on, I ranted for quite a bit, so I'm gonna possibly edit it down to just the important parts. I finished Fledgling yesterday, the day before yesterday. And usually I would have come with notes written down, but the only thing I was able to write down was 2 words. Okay. Where do I start? I wanted to love this book. I really, really did. I struggled to read this book. I felt like I was reading this book on autopilot. I feel like I was reading it. I was processing enough of it to follow, but at points it did feel like I was like subconsciously skimming this book, just trying to figure out, get from one point to the next. But I don't know if we ever got to a point, but I don't know if this one, I didn't like the writing, really. It's not that I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the writing. I didn't care. I didn't care about anything going on. I didn't care about any of the people involved. I didn't care about how justice was going to be served. I wasn't invested. I didn't feel anything. Not just for this book or the characters, but from the book and the characters. This book just feels flat. The characters are flat. The story's kind of flat. And I'm like, I know I'm new here. I know I just got here. But it doesn't feel right to me. It's not sitting in my spirit that this is the same author that literally changed my life a few months ago. This kind of felt sort of like it was a draft that just got published. I also feel like this book is so repetitive. It's so repetitive. Like, I understand that Shuri has lost her memory. She's lost herself, essentially. I don't need her telling me that every 3 pages. I got it. I got it. And then there's just the element of Shuri and her the symbiotic relationships with her little group of humans. So a symbiote is different than a mate. Mates, they mate within their enas, which is the name of vampires in this book. But they also have human symbionts who they feed from. So they kind of like are like in a symbiotic relationship with several humans who they feed from. It's also like a sexual relationship to some extent. There's like a sexual element to it because like the symbiotes experience while like the feeding and from the venom of this like extreme sort of like orgasmic pleasure or whatever. Here's my issue, right? Shuri's 53 years old. Shuri's still considered a child within her community because she's just 53. That's a child to them. Shuri is in the body. Well, not in the body. She presents, I'll say, as an 11-year-old child. Right, who is her first symbiote finds her on the road in the first book and, is like, girl, can I take you somewhere? This is not safe. And I know, like I said, I know the venom sort of bonds the person who's bitten to Shuri, and there is like a, what's it called in vampire lore? I wrote it down somewhere, I think I wrote it in here. Like, it's like a being compelled, essentially, and influenced. So there's consent, but like, it's sort of muddled a little bit. But when she got in his car, he thought she was a little child, right? And before she bit this man, there were implications that he was interested in her before he realized she wasn't a child. child. At no point did it feel like it felt like these people were having sex with the little kid. That's what it felt like. It felt icky, and I didn't like it. And that might just be me, but I didn't like it. I couldn't, there wasn't a way to turn that off. Coming in at number 6 was one of the first books I read this year, and it was Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I read this in January for my second Dark Academia vlog. Honestly, I didn't really expect much going into it because I had already heard a lot of mixed things prior to reading it myself. Like basically when, I actually don't know when it came out, but there was a while where people were talking about it and how just kind of lackluster it is. So I kind of had, I don't know, I knew there was a chance that it wasn't going to be for me, but it was a waste of my time. It was such a waste of my time. Absolutely nothing of consequence happened in that book. The main character was so difficult. She was so difficult because she just floats in this like state of dissociation and like detachment. And I think I said this in the vlog, I'm already dealing with my own detachment and like dissociation. I can't, one of us is going to have to do something here, you know? It just, the narrator of the audiobook was excellent though, so I will give her her things. Inez, I don't remember her last name, is the narrator. I remember that mostly because her she has the same name as the main character of Catherine House. I guess I should possibly be telling you what these books are about. Okay, Fledgling briefly is a vampire book. It follows Shuri, who wakes up basically in this cave, healing from these extensive injury. She has no memory of who she is, where she's from, who her people are, but she wakes up with this absolute all-consuming need to feed, like specifically on like fresh raw meat that turns into like a need for blood. Turns out, while presenting as like a 10-year-old child, Shuri is like a 53-year-old vampire. Her family has been murdered, and we're following like her trying to figure out who she is, trying to reconnect with whoever's left that knew her and her family, and trying to piece together who killed her family, who is now out to kill her, and why, and also trying to like form her own vampire like unit, essentially. Catherine House's Dark Academia. It follows Inez, who has been accepted to this program at Catherine House, which is this like secluded university in like middle of nowhere Pennsylvania. When you are accepted to Catherine House, you are basically expected to, for 3 years of your life, give up literally all attachments to the outside world. You give up your attachments to your family, your hobbies, your anything else, and you're fully isolated in Catherine. You're fully devoted to your studies. Some things happen that I'm not 100% remembering correctly, so we're just gonna breeze past that. So I feel like at some point there's supposed to be like a mystery involved, but sometimes I do need to read bad books because it makes me, it fuels my inspiration, fuels, it makes me feel like I could publish a book, and it makes me sit down with my manuscript and just keep working. Or by keep working, just stare at it and maybe write like 3 sentences. Anywho, coming in at number 5 is a twofer because they're by the same author, and I read them back to back. And it's Girl in the Blue Coat and They Went Left by Monica Hess. I've had these books for so long. Both of them are World War II historical fictions. Girl in the Blue Coat takes place in Nazi occupied Amsterdam. Love Amsterdam. One of my favorite places I've ever been. I was about to say during the Holocaust. It's implied with the Nazi occupied Amsterdam thing. And we are following, I don't remember the main character's name, Hanneke, who basically is like, she is like a runner for like the black market or whatever. One of her customers kind of enlists her help to find a missing girl that she was hiding. A missing Jewish girl she was hiding in her home. And there's like a lot that goes around, I mean, that goes with it. There is the involvement of Hanneke's dead ex-boyfriend's brother, who is tied to the resistance. And like on its surface, like I understand why people say it's a good book. Honestly, if I had read this like in 2015 or whatever, when it came out, I absolutely would have loved this book. I mean, like books like, I've loved books like this in the past. The Book Thief is one of my favorite books. I could, like, right now it wasn't for me. Like reading a story set during the Holocaust from kind of like an outsider's perspective, sort of, it being centered on a spectator of sorts, even though she, you know, she to some extent is like, it's not safe necessarily for anybody, you know, but it's not the same. So I just in the time we're living in, it wasn't hitting for me, you know. So then I read They Went Left, which takes place right after like the liberation of the camps, and it follows, I don't remember the main character of this book's name, but she has just been liberated from a camp, and she is looking for her brother, who as far as she knows is like the last remaining member of her family, whereas the rest of them, when they arrived initially at Auschwitz-Birkenau, as the title implies, went left to the chambers. And it just follows her on her unrelenting search to find her little brother. She's, you know, dealing with the trauma of what she's just survived, and she makes her way to this refugee camp and kind of like builds like sort of connections around that, and then, you know, she's finding different relationships. And I did enjoy that one for the most part more than the first one, and then it took a turn, and I think also part of my issue is that upon a little bit of research, I still could be wrong and I would love to be corrected. Upon a little bit of research, Monica Hess doesn't seem to have any actual ties to the stories that she's writing, and I'm not necessarily saying that you have to. I'm not saying that you cannot write a story based on, especially like a historical story based on what's not necessarily your history. I don't believe she's Dutch. Don't believe she's Jewish. If I'm correct, as far as I know, Hess is a German name, so I guess she is sort of tied to this history. Sorry, but I don't know. It's just the headspace I'm in right now, that I would have preferred a story written by like someone with more, maybe it would have gotten a little bit more something that I was looking for if there was any tie, any sort of like connection to the story, not just from like a I researched this standpoint. Also, hey, about that situation in They Went Left, what? But also the actual other plot twist, I did see that coming from like a mile away. Let's move on. Number 4 on this list was Olga Dies Dreaming by Xoxo Gonzalez. I read in February. It's part of my first read it or unhaul it video, and I haven't decided if I'm going to unhaul it yet because the cover's pretty, you know how it is. And I don't have, let me see if I can find my notes on, maybe I actually wrote notes for this one. Okay. I basically said I remain quite indifferent to this book. If I'm being real, I only continued reading because on the day of my ultimatum, I made an ultimatum because I was struggling to get into it, that I was just gonna give up. I read 100 pages within the day, and then at that point giving up would have felt like a colossal waste of time, blah, 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 blah. There were some points that held my interest, and I actually did really, there's a romance subplot that I enjoyed, but truthfully it was hard because Olga was so unimportant to me. She was also like not a good person. I'm not saying that you have to be a good person to be a compelling character, but she was neither of those things. She was not a good person, nor was she a compelling character. Most of the plot points in this book just felt flat, and I actually backtrack. This story follows Olga, as the title implies, who is a Puerto Rican woman living in New York. Her brother is a politician. He's kind of like very sort of like beloved in his community. It seems like he was written to kind of feel like an AOC type character before. Anyway, their mother is a sort of like radical activist freedom fighter, and that has a lot to do with this story, even though that storyline I don't think it really added anything to this book. And I think this book takes place surrounding Hurricane Maria. I don't know enough about Hurricane Maria aside from what the bits that I saw on the news when it happened. I don't know enough about like Puerto Rican culture or like life on the island to really comment on a lot of the things, but it just wasn't, I'm really indifferent, so like whatever. Okay, my first read of the year made it to this list, very unfortunately, and also like really disappointing, because it's An Education of Malice by S.D. Gibson, which is another dark academia. Like I mentioned in January, I did my second dark academia reading vlog. This is a dark academia, sapphic dark academia retelling sort of Carmilla. So they're vampires. I read Carmilla last year, I believe. I was really neither here nor there about that so I guess it fits, but this was just like a real like letdown. I didn't really care too much about anything that was going on in this book. And this is why it's really disappointing, because I adore A Dowry of Blood. That's one of my favorite books. I don't remember what year I read it, but it was like in the top 5 of the books that I read that year. I said about this book, unfortunately my expectations were way too high from A Dowry of Blood. I've only now read 2 S.T. Gibson books. I loved that book so much. I loved the prose and the poetry of it, and just assumed this would be more of the same. I just don't think it was, and I wonder just how much the opinions I had already heard influenced my reading experience. I wonder if I would have enjoyed it more if I went in totally blind, because I had heard that a lot of people were saying that it didn't even feel like it was written by the same author, and that unfortunately is true to me. I will say that obsession is S.T. Gibson's bag, especially queer vampiric obsession. However, this book didn't do much of anything. Both POVs felt the same. I frequently had to double check to see who was narrating. The dark academia element past the first maybe quarter of the book was a complete afterthought, and I found myself missing the poetry cohort. This book could have been set anywhere. That's how little the dark academia element really mattered. Thankfully, the book I read after that is going to be on it's going to be in the next video. But yeah, I was so heartbroken because, like I said, Dowry of Blood is that girl. It is everything. It's so, yeah, And like now I'm kind of nervous to read more S.T. Gibson. Like I don't know what I'm gonna get. I have Savage Blooms. I did get it like right when it released. I went to Saint's Philly stop on the tour, met Saint, she's great. And I'm excited, like, because the synopses always get me. I'm always like, yes, injected into my veins. The vibes are immaculate, so I'm hoping and praying that this is what I need it to be, because it sounds like it's going to be so good. It sounds like something I am going to devour. Number 2, one of the most disappointing things that's ever happened to me. I am devastated to say this out loud. The Ruined by Renee Attia, which is the 4th and final book of the Beautiful series. Speaking of vampires, The Beautiful and the Damned are such good books. And when I read The Righteous, it was different, but I had hope for where we were going. I was intrigued by the switch of the narrative, the switch of where the story was going. I DNF'd The Ruined maybe like 60 pages in. Do you understand how hard it is for me to DNF any book, let alone a book by a favorite author? The Wrath and the Dawn is one of my favorite books ever. I will ride or die for that book until the wheels fall off. And like I said, The Beautiful and the Damned, and I think that's what it is. Duologies are Renee's specialty. She will write a duology and I will gobble it, swallow it. I'm not gonna trip down the side of it. Yeah, it did not feel like it was written by Renee. I'm very familiar with Renee Attia's prose, with the Renee Attia's writing style. I have loved legitimately everything else I've read. Even Flame in the Mist, is that what that duology is? Still, it's not We Hunt the Flame, Jesus Christ. The Wrath and the Dawn, still great, but it's not The Ruined. So many, I went to Goodreads to see like what other people were saying. The average rating of that book was a 3. Solid. 3.0. And the amount of people in their like reviews saying the only thing this book really got right was the title, that hurt my feelings. The Beautiful, if you don't know, it is set in New Orleans at in the 1800s, like turn of the century. It follows Celine, who has just moved from Paris. She is escaping some things. She is running from her past. She gets tied up with the Coeur de Lion, who are this group of supernatural creatures, vampires, and their leader, Sebastian Saint-Germain. Oh, Sebastian. And yeah, it's got that like New Orleans vibe. It's like kind of steamy and like sexy and dark and mysterious and magical and vampires and, like I said, New Orleans, and it has like the quarter like Parisian vibe, and it's just so good. And it went so wrong. I don't understand. And I don't think I deserved that. I don't even remember when I read this book. When did I read this book? It wasn't February. It wasn't March, because March was my Hosier vlog. When did I read The Damned? I mean, not The Damned, The Righteous, Ruined. Never mind. I legitimately don't remember when I read this book, but it took so long for me to just give it up and just accept that I was not going to finish this book. When did I read this book? I don't know. It's not really important, truthfully. So let's just talk about number 1. Let's get this out the way. In March, when I was doing my books with Hosier Vibes vlog, I read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. Now, Andrew has mentioned this book a lot when he's talked about like his inspiration, his favorite authors, yada yada yada. So I thought it was absolutely necessary to include James Joyce on my TBR. Famous Irish author. In fact, there was like a thing years ago, which unfortunately, probably now that I'm thinking about it, might have been AI generated, where you like put like an example of your writing and it like analyzes it and tells you like author your writing is like, and I got James Joyce and I was like, oh cool. And now I'm like, actually don't ever say that to me again. What? Why would you say that? Don't piss me off. I think I want to insert the TikTok that I posted when I was reading it. And honestly, just because I'm a Dairy Girls stan, so I just felt like it was appropriate.
So it says to himself, says I, Colin, this is no day for a do.
What's happening?
For when the bride arrived, and as I say, by this stage the wind was fierce.
Am I dead?
I've never heard wind like it.
Is this my week?
Howling like a banshee it was.
Am I in hell?
Let me hop back to March really quick. My March notes really quick, because I know I wrote something down. Hosier. Andrew Hosier burn. Did I not write anything down? I actually, you know what, probably not, because I didn't really have much to say. I do remember that in the vlog I really did just get up and walk out. This book was tedious. So essentially it's following Stephen Dedalus, who is a fictionalized version of James Joyce, and it takes place in like the 1800s, I think. And it's just like a fictionalized version, I think, of his life and just life in Ireland at that time, and just like the way like religion was so intertwined with life, and just we're just following a dude. That's all I really remember of what happened in this book. I even was listening to the audiobook alongside of it. There were so many steps. I was listening to the audiobook, and then there were things would be happening, and I'm like, when did that happen? Where I still fully would zone out during the audiobook. I had to start utilizing Spark Notes to just recap what I had read for the day. So I feel like that's the only reason why I've retained anything, which is like I felt like I was studying for school, and maybe that's what really took me back and just made it even worse of an experience. I didn't even do this much in high school. My brain was a lot less smooth back then. So yeah, it was tedious. I'll say it again, tedious to get through this book. Maybe I should have chosen a different James Joyce book, but then someone in my TikTok comment said this is his most accessible work, so maybe not. I don't know. Andrew, see me outside. Andrew, see me outside. I just want to talk. Don't ever do that to me again, okay? Thankfully, so many of the other books I read that month were spectacular. That was the month that I read Peril of the Sower. Right, those were my most disappointing and or worst reads of 2025. Like I said, 7's not bad. 7 really isn't that bad for books that like were bad enough that I felt the need to talk about. There were a lot of other books I'm like, I don't really care enough to talk about, so they're just floating in the middle. 7 isn't bad. Where on the flip side, I'm still trying to narrow down my top 10 for best, which once again, that's a good balance for me, truthfully. All right, I'm gonna stop talking. Thank you for watching. Let me know what your least favorite read was of 2025. If you've read any of these books, feel free to tell me in a civilized manner why I'm wrong. Will it change my mind? No, but I'm open to conversation. Thank you for watching. Thank you for, if you've been here for the past year, thanks. If you're new, thanks. Anyway, did I say if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like me, feel free to subscribe. All my places are down below so you can follow me, and I'll follow you back, and I'll see you very soon. Happy New Year.